Hello kids, hope you all are well. So today in the video lecture we cover rest of the topics of the chapter. So we start with the harm principles. Here one question appears: mention harm principles and its need from the viewpoint of the chapter liberty. Here the spell of principle is wrong guys, it's PLE. So to answer these questions satisfactorily, we have to address the issue of the limits, competence and consequences of the imposition. We also have to engage with another issue that John Stuart Mill stated so eloquently in his essay on liberty in the discussion in political theory. It is called the harm principles. Very important. Let us quote his statement and then try and explain it. Harm itself means that the rules, regulations which are harmful or create some problem. So here according to his views we have to be discussed. The principle is that sole and for which mankind are warranted individually or collectively in interfering with the liberty of action of any of that number is self-protection, that the only purpose for which power can be rightfully exercised over any member of civilized community against his will is to prevent harm to others. Mill introduces here an important distinction. He distinguishes means differences between self-regarding actions, that is those actions that have results only for the individual actor and nobody else, and other regarding actions, that is those actions that also have results for others. He argues that with respect to actions or choices that affect only oneself, self-regarding actions, the state for any other external authority has no business to interfere. Or put in some language, it would be, that's my business, I will do what I like. Or how does it concern you? We can say that normally often you can see whenever you are fighting with your siblings or others, you can say that it's my own business, none of your business, do your own work, I have my own authority, I have my own freedom, I can do according to me. So all these things are under self-regarding actions when nobody can interfere. Or put in some simple language, all these things. In contrast, after it distinguish with the others regarding actions, its opposite with respect to actions that have results for others, actions which may cause harm to them, there is some case for external interferences. After all, if your actions cause me harm, then surely I must be saved from such harm by some external authority. If, for example, if you fight with your sibling while saying that it's my own work, no, don't give your advice on it, don't interfere it, but second timely when you hurt somebody or do some violence to achieve your own freedom or your own thing, then the second person can impact on it, and the consequences that your sibling obviously needs help of parents, family members. Similarly, when we harm others, right, they can take the help of external like the police or like other authorities. So here we can say that for external interferences, after all, if your actions cause me harm, then surely I must be saved from such harm by some external authority. Understand? In this case, it is the state which can constrain a person from acting in a way that causes harm to someone else. Similarly, if you harm your siblings, your brother, sister, then your parents must give already give you some restriction, some advice, so you can work according to it. Otherwise they set some limits to you. However, as freedom is it that the core of human society is so crucial for a dignified human life, it should only be constrained in special circumstances. The harm caused must be serious. For minor harm, Mill recommends only such social disapproval and not the force of law. For example, the playing of loud music in an apartment building should bring only social disapproval from the other residents of the building. They should not involve the police. They should indicate their disapproval of the inconvenience that playing loud music has caused them by perhaps refusing to grade the person who plays greet the person who plays the music disregarding the harm it is causing others. I have already quoted this example in the very starting module, that in this way you can only request to the person that slow down the volume of the music, or with mutual understanding you can work on it. You cannot involve any external authority in it. The harm that playing loud music causes is that of preventing those in other apartments from talking or sleeping or listening to their own music. So this is minor harm. This is known as minor harm and should only provoke social disapproval. It is not fit case for legal punishment. Constraining actions by the force of law should only happen when the other regarding actions means second. First one, this loud music is under the first harm, that is called minor harm, or you can say self regarding harm. Consequences on yourself only, you suffer only, you impact there. When other regarding actions means that major harm, when legally some authority involved in it. Otherwise society must bear the inconvenience in the spirit of protecting freedom. So here are the issues of dress code also. In China, during Mao's regime, all the people had to wear Mao's suits based on the argument that it was an expression of equality. In schools you can see that everybody follow the dress code, so everybody have no idea, or you can say that no set of things in their mind that they belong to lower caste or poor. So everybody is equal. So this is the thing that everybody have to wear same uniform. So here you can see that a fatwa was issued against Sania Mirza for her style of dress that was considered by one cleric to be against the dress code prescribed for women. The rules of a test match in cricket require every cricketer to wear white dress. Students are required to wear school uniforms. Let us debate some questions now. Is the restriction on what we wear justified in all cases or only in some? When does it constitute a constraint on freedom? How we can put now constraint in it? Who has the authority to impose these constraints? Should religious leaders be given the authority to issue decree or on dress? Can the state decide what one should wear? Should the ICC set down rules of what to wear when playing cricket? Is the imposition excessive? Does it diminish the many ways people have to expressing themselves? What are the consequences of accepting the impositions? Will the society become equal if everyone dresses the same way as in Mao's China? Or are women being denied the participation in sports if they cannot wear clothes that would help them to compete effectively? Will the game be affected if cricketers wear colored clothes? So all these are the debate issues, healthy discussions. People should be ready to tolerate different ways of life, different points of view, and the different interests, so long as they do not cause harm to others. But such tolerance need to be extended to views and actions which may put people in danger or foment hatred. Against them, hate campaigns cause serious harm to the freedom of others, and actions that cause serious harm are actions on which constraints can be imposed. But we must make sure that the constraints imposed are not so very severe that they destroy freedom itself. For example, we must not ask for life imprisonment for those who only conduct hate campaign. Maybe some restrictions on their movement or some curtailment of their rights to hold public meetings can be considered, especially if they continue to carry on the campaign in spite of warnings by the state of desist from conducting such campaigns. In the constitutional discussions in India, the term used for such justifiable constraints is reasonable restrictions. The restrictions may there, but they must be reasonable, that is capable of being defended by reason, not excessive, not out of proportion to the action being restricted, since then it would impinge on the general condition of freedom in society. We must not develop a habit of imposing restrictions, since such a habit of determined on to freedom. So all these things, and one question, what are the different types of freedom of liberty? Here we have different types. We have already cleared you, like civil freedom, political liberty, economic liberty, natural liberty, religious liberty, and here negative and positive liberty are the dimensions of liberty. So this is the next module we have to be discussed about. Negative conception, guys, means that absence of restraints and rights to do whatever one likes. This conception may make the powerful person more powerful to keep the weaker ones in their mercy. So the weaker section means the people, those who are considered weaker means that time period earlier women, and the scheduled caste and scheduled people, tribes, those who consider and work on the basis on the rich people powerful. This conception of liberty faces the following drawbacks. Liberty is concerned with the area control, not with its sources. Hence, this is not necessary to have democracy to enjoy freedom. The state should control the liberty of an individual only up to the limit where he interferes in others' such liberty. So here we can say that these are the concepts of negative freedom, and when we are discussed about the positive freedom, we have to be considered on the second paragraph. It refers to the society in which adequate facilities are available for each and every section of society to enjoy desirable rights. This believes that every individual or section should not create a problem to the progress of others. They have to welcome others' work also and greet them for their growth. People can enjoy all freedoms which are permissible by laws. They have to follow the rules and regulations. It ensures the growth of poor, weak and downtrodden people also. They must be helpful. They must be taking care of themselves and others too. It interprets that liberty lies in the removal of obstacles. They have to be not allowing any harm principles to others. They have to follow equality. So these are the positive and negative conceptions of liberty. Now here one question appears. Explain the importance of freedom of expression. Why is it mentioned as first fundamental right in Indian Constitution? So guys, this is the last module regarding the topic of freedom of expression. So here we have to be discussed freedom of expression. Guys, it's already you can heard that from our first fundamental right mentioned in the Constitution. Constitution means a book of rules and regulation. So here the fundamental right, first, freedom of speech and expression. It means that when we can have authority by the Constitution, by the government, no one can interfere to publish or to express their views in their own native language. One of the issues that is considered to belong to the minimum area of non-interference is the freedom of expression. Right? J.S. Mill set out good reasons why freedom of expression should not be restricted. This is a good case for discussion. Now we have to be discussed about freedom of expression according to him through the examples also. Here we can say that it is a right of non-interference by the state. It is a fundamental value. Fundamental means very important first. And society must be willing to bear some inconveniences also to protect it from people whosoever wants to restrict it. But at various times the demands have been raised to ban on books, play, films and academic articles which are not good for youth or others. Freedom has been classified as positive and negative liberty. Already I have discussed, but these constants are supposed to be supported by the people and moral argument. So here we can say that these are the very important topic about the freedom. So we can say that from this you have to be discussed about all these things when you can read it. Banning is an easy solution. We already discussed all these things from the earlier modules also. It's just a nutshell regarding it. One question here, give your own views about freedom of expression. Yes guys, you have to be frame in your own wordings how you can consider that first fundamental right given or mentioned in our Constitution of India, that freedom of expression is very very important. How you agree with it, give your own views about it. Here we can say that this is in brief with the three parts regarding by according to J.S. Mill views. A political thinker and an activist in the 19th century Britain offered a passionate defense of freedom of expression, including freedom of thought and discussion. In his book on liberty, the offered for reasons why there should be freedom of expression even for those who espouse ideas that appears false or misleading today. First number, no idea is completely false. What appears to us false has an element of truth. If we ban false ideas, we would lose the element of truth that they contain. This is related to the second point. Truth does not emerge by itself. It is only through a conflict of opposing views that truth emerges. When we are debating something, we have our own ideas. We have to be accept only the good points when we conclude the things. So the ideas are very, very important. What one can think, you can't stop them, but you can, through discussions, all these things we have to be overcome. Ideas that seem wrong today may have been very valuable in the emergence of what we consider right now in this kind of ideals. Thirdly, this conflict of ideas is valuable not just in the past but is of continuing value for all times. Truth always runs the risk of being reduced to an unthinking clique. It is only when we expose it to opposing views that we can be sure that the idea of trustworthy. Finally, we cannot be sure that what we consider true is actually true. Very often ideas that were considered false at one point of the entire society and therefore suppressed turned out to be true later on. When you can say that through one dominant party or one dominant authority personality just snub you, just suppress means that what you want to be say, you have to be stopped because of that dominance, that powerful personality. But later on the things are changed. Two sides of a coin. When your turn, the truth is came, and already that thing will be in future important and true. A society that completely suppresses all ideas that are not acceptable today runs the danger of losing the benefits of what might turn out to be very valuable knowledge. Clear, guys? So this is your second chapter, Liberty. We complete all 6 modules in it with 8 objectives, that why we study this chapter, and now you aware about all these things, about the concept of freedom, negative and positive conception, dimensions of freedom, harm principles, constraints, need of constraints, and then you have to be classified about liberty into 6 types. Then we conclude it with the freedom of expression, which is very, very important. So if you have any doubts, we discuss it on online doubt session. Till now you have to be studied properly. Take care of your health, and very soon we will meet with the next topic. Thank you, guys. Stay